They applauded when I walked in, but none of them knew I was drowning. They liked my shine, not my scars, and that's where my story begins. I stand here today not as a woman who chased claps, likes, or borrowed validation, but as a woman who learned, painfully, fiercely, and finally, to choose respect over attention. There was a time when attention felt like oxygen to me. Every compliment kept me breathing, every stare made me feel seen, every message convinced me I mattered, but what I didn't realize was that I was shrinking my soul to fit into someone else's gaze. I was loud where I should have been grounded, available where I should have been valued, smiling while my self-worth was begging me to stop. Attention is addictive, it whispers lies, it tells you that being wanted is the same as being respected, but trust me, they are worlds apart. I wore confidence like makeup, thick enough to hide the cracks, but respect cannot be worn, it is earned, and I hadn't earned it because I hadn't even given it to myself. I allowed people to cross lines because I was afraid silence would make me invisible. I settled for being admired instead of being honored, and I confused being desired with being dignified. Every time I chose attention, I lost a piece of myself, and every time I ignored my values, I taught the world how to treat me. The turning point wasn't dramatic, it was quiet, brutal, and honest. One night, surrounded by noise, I felt completely empty, and in that emptiness, I heard my inner voice scream, "Is this all you are?" That question shook me harder than any rejection ever could. I realized attention fades the moment you stop entertaining, but respect stays even when you walk away. Respect doesn't need volume, it needs boundaries. It doesn't beg, it stands. And that night, I made a decision that would cost me applause but give me peace. I chose to walk alone rather than walk disrespected. I chose depth over drama, self-worth over validation, and truth over performance. This is not the story of a woman who became cold, this is the story of a woman who became unbreakable. When I chose respect, the room got quieter, but my soul got louder. I stopped explaining myself to people who only understood me when I was entertaining them. I lost invitations, I lost followers, I lost people who only loved the version of me that was convenient, but listen carefully, I found myself. I learned that respect begins the moment you stop negotiating your worth, the moment you stop proving your value to those committed to misunderstanding you. I raised my standards and some called it attitude, I enforced boundaries and some called me difficult, but what they couldn't call me anymore was available for disrespect. I understood that a woman who respects herself is dangerous, not because she fights the world, but because she refuses to shrink for it. I stopped chasing eyes and started building character, I stopped performing and started becoming, and that shift changed everything. Respect taught me patience, taught me silence, taught me power that doesn't scream but shakes the ground when it walks. Attention wants you to be seen, respect wants you to be remembered. Attention feeds your ego, respect feeds your legacy. And the most powerful moment of my life was when I realized I didn't need to be chosen, I needed to choose myself. So if you're listening to me right now, standing at the edge between validation and self-worth, hear this from a woman who survived both: choose respect even if it costs you popularity, choose dignity even if it makes you lonely, choose growth even if it makes others uncomfortable. Because attention will clap for you today and forget you tomorrow, but respect will carry your name into rooms you haven't even entered yet. And when you finally stand rooted in who you are, you won't need the spotlight, the world will feel your presence even in your silence. Choosing respect didn't make my life easier, it made me stronger, and strength is born where comfort ends. There were days I questioned myself, days the loneliness echoed louder than the applause ever did, but even in those moments, I stood firm because peace has a sound too, it's quiet, steady, and powerful. I learned that when you stop begging for attention, you start commanding presence. People may ignore your silence at first, but they can never ignore your growth. Respect reshaped my posture, my voice, my decisions. It taught me to walk away without slamming doors, to say no without guilt, and to love without losing myself. I stopped watering dead gardens just to feel needed and started nurturing my own roots, and slowly, everything aligned. Opportunities came that didn't require me to compromise, relationships formed that didn't demand me to perform, and success found me when I stopped chasing approval. Understand this deeply. Attention makes you visible for a moment, but respect makes you undeniable for a lifetime. A woman who respects herself doesn't compete, doesn't beg, doesn't explain, she becomes. She knows her worth even when the room doubts it, and that certainty is magnetic. So rise, even if your voice shakes, stand tall even if your knees tremble, because the moment you choose respect, you choose evolution. Let them misunderstand you, let them talk, let them leave, your journey was never meant to be crowded. One day they'll ask how you became so strong, and you'll smile, because you'll know the truth. You stopped living for attention and started living in alignment with your soul, and that decision changed everything. The day I fully embraced respect, I stopped measuring my life by reactions and started measuring it by results, and that shift rewired my destiny. I no longer woke up asking who would notice me, I woke up asking who I was becoming. I learned that attention is loud but shallow, it claps for the performance, not the purpose, while respect is silent and deep, watching how you move when no one is watching. I trained myself to be consistent instead of impressive, disciplined instead of dramatic, intentional instead of impulsive, and that discipline built a power no applause ever could. I became the woman who doesn't enter rooms to be seen but to stand firm in who she is, and that kind of presence changes the temperature of any space. There were moments when choosing respect felt like choosing obscurity, when my growth happened in shadows and my sacrifices went unseen, but unseen growth is the most dangerous kind because it compounds in silence. I realized that a woman rooted in self-respect cannot be manipulated, cannot be rushed, cannot be owned. She listens deeply, moves wisely, and speaks only when her words add weight to the room. I stopped romanticizing struggle and started honoring endurance, because respect isn't built in emotional highs, it's built in the quiet decisions you make every day when no one is cheering. I protected my time like treasure, my energy like currency, and my standards like sacred ground, and in doing so, I attracted a life that matched my values. Let this truth burn into you. Attention will reward you for being available, but respect will reward you for being aligned. One feeds your ego. The other feeds your future. So if you're tired of being consumed and forgotten, of being praised and drained, choose the harder path, the one that demands patience, integrity, and courage. Choose to become so solid in who you are that even silence speaks for you. Because when you choose respect, you don't just change how the world treats you,